It is a shame as well that it's a best of three. Like, we were kind of discussing it earlier that I wish these qualifying matches were best of fives. I mean, I kind of wish they were. If they were best of fives, this stream would go on far longer, I guess. It's already been, we've been live for 9 hours. It's been a 9-hour stream. Like, 2 of those hours was downtime, but it just doesn't end. Spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Ancient Cistern, we have the German Protoss player representing big esports. It is ShoWTimE. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Zerg player representing Mystery Gaming. It is RagnaroK. Let's go, Bobby. Let's go. The final best of three, the final qualifying match here of the open bracket to see who makes it in and who makes it out, who continues their run in ESL Master Summer, and who has to go home empty-handed. Alas, one must rise so the other can fall, and I'm really excited about this. I'm excited and also a little bit anxious. For those who are maybe not so familiar here with ShoWTimE, for example, he plays a very meticulous and a very defensive style of PvZ. We were talking about it a little bit when we were casting Creator. If you were here earlier in the broadcast when we were talking about Creator, we were bringing up how he has such a high-tech, ground-based, kind of unique style of PvZ. We saw him delay his Twilight Council, we saw him go into Immortals quite early on, then into Archons, into Disruptors, and focus on a ground push. ShoWTimE is similar to that style from Creator, except ramped up to 11. He delays his Twilight Council even further than normal, and he never moves out. He just stays, maxes out on 4 bases, and then he's active on the map after deflecting a push from the Zerg player typically. So ShoWTimE, as his reputation precedes him, is a very defensive player. He is Demala, he is the wolf for a reason, and on a map like Ancient Cistern, that's why I'm anxious, because this could be a 40-minute game. I could very easily see this going the distance, so I am a little bit concerned. But I believe in RagnaroK. On the flip side of things, as ShoWTimE is a very defensive player, RagnaroK is a very aggressive player. When we think about the Korean Zerg players, when we think about Solar, when we think about Dark, when we think about RagnaroK and Dongraegu, RagnaroK is the more aggressive out of them. He is willing to go for these all-ins, go for these big Roach Ravager base pushes off of 60 workers or even 66 workers, maybe a Ling Bane bust as well. He is typically looking to be very active very early on. And speaking of, we do have an additional wave of Lings on the way as well, just to be safe, just to be secure. This was a hatch gas full opener here from RagnaroK. He was able to get his natural base on location as well, so a massive shout out to him, just to make things a little bit easier to defend early on. Behind this, we have that Stargate opener into an Oracle, so nothing too crazy out of ShoWTimE yet. It's the follow-up from here. Again, we'll see if ShoWTimE mixes things up. Typically, ShoWTimE would go into a Forge and a Robo from here, but we'll see if he does mix things up and go for a faster Twilight Council instead, and play with his reputation and play with the norms. I'm very excited to see that come to fruition. As RagnaroK is getting a spore in his main, his queens are getting in position at his natural. Again, he's getting ready to receive the first Oracle as it zooms across the map. At the same time, his Lings are being quite active, looking to delay any kind of third base that will be attempted to be taken by ShoWTimE. Third base is on the way. Lings show up at the triangular third. Alas, there's no base here, unfortunately, and they will be checking the linear third base location instead, but the Adepts are in position. One probe goes down, but only a probe. Meanwhile, the Oracle does get across the map, and the Queens do swat it away. No damage done. Sole defense so far, and RagnaroK. Oh, did you see that? I was about to comment on his very fast Roach Warren, which is very unorthodox. A 4-minute Roach Warren against a Stargate opener is hyper aggressive, but he cancels the Roach Warren and he goes for a Evo Chamber instead, so he's going for a more standard follow-up here. Meanwhile, we get a couple of drone kills, 2 drones so far for an Oracle. It's okay, at least ShoWTimE hasn't lost anything yet. He is now up to 3 Oracles as the third one is zooming across the map. Meanwhile, there's that forge that we were talking about. There's another gateway. We should be seeing a robo momentarily as well, with no Twilight Council, if this is the ShoWTimE we know and love. And there's that robo. So again, ShoWTimE does typically delay that Twilight Council heavily in favor of high-tech units and upgrades. Again, just taking this more defensive position. It's very unique to ShoWTimE. I'll be honest, I don't know any other Protoss player that does it quite like this. Again, Creator is similar in a way. Creator has some similarities with ShoWTimE, but they are distinctly different enough. Well, they are different enough to make that distinction, I should say. Meanwhile, safe straps are being thrown down, but RagnaroK is able to keep up with them so far. At depths, oh, they do get caught in this around, and they will be forced to recall. Ay, ay, ay. Not like this, Papi. Not like this. The Oracles are forced back for the time being with the death or with the recall of those adepts. Now RagnaroK has full map control. He's rushing across the map with everything he has to try and punish this third base. The force fields are looking pretty damn good. The overcharge as well, keeping these units alive, but the overcharge cannot heal itself. Shield battery will go down. The Lynx get a surround as well, taking down a lot of these gateway units and even a couple of probes. But with the arrival of these Oracles, these Lynx, they need to get the hell out of here. And was that trade worth it in the end? We caused a lot of chaos. Again, we forced ShoWTimE to expend energy to stay at home, but he was going to stay at home anyway. I mean, so I'm sure this is still a good trade for ShoWTimE back at home. There's that Twilight Council finally on the way, but if I reach into my memory, and if I recall correctly, typically we still delay our upgrades, and this Twilight Council is for a Templar Archives, and we delay the charge and the blink by quite a bit more as well. Meanwhile, a solid surround here by the Lings of RagnaroK. Somehow, some way, he finds a way to get so much value. The sentries go down, the Immortal as well. ShoWTimE is losing far too much. Bearing in mind that he can't really counterattack without any Twilight Council upgrades, and because of that, RagnaroK, he is just looking so good right now. He's got his fourth getting fully up and running, getting fully operational. Meanwhile, as we mentioned earlier, we have the Twilight Council, we do have charge on the way, but also the Templar Archives for those Archons. As well as the Bay as well. Like again, ShoWTimE is teching so heavily right now, and because he's teching so much, his army is non-existent. I mean, he had an army, and it's not around anymore. It got surrounded, like there was no way to deal with it. There was no way to really contest against those Lings. RagnaroK has just been getting such good value here with only minerals, with only Lings. And now that he's up to this 70 worker count, we have our gases being taken. Now we have roaches being built. Now RagnaroK is looking to lay siege upon this fourth base. ShoWTimE, despite his defensive position in this game, despite trying to be as cost efficient as possible, he's been failing to do so. He's been failing to be efficient against the armies and the play of RagnaroK, and now here he is looking to just power through this fourth. ShoWTimE once again gets fully surrounded. There is no fourth base, there is no overcharge available. Everything is going to be going down. We have a disruptor, we have a Nova going off, and it will not actually go off. It does get cancelled in the end as the disruptor gets killed, and RagnaroK is looking to just snowball and roll over his opponent. ShoWTimE having a really hard time getting into the mid game, defend his third, defending his fourth. He just couldn't do so. He couldn't keep up with the aggression of RagnaroK. He was getting so much value over the course of this game with his Lings, with pure Lings. Up! Good Nova. But we need more than one Nova. That's the reality of this. The Nova is not good enough. The Lings, they flood on forward as well. The Roaches, there is no shield battery, no overcharge. The Warp-In is denied with the death of that pylon. We have a disruptor coming out in a couple of seconds, but GG gets called, and RagnaroK will take game number 1. GG. Very well done here by RagnaroK. We saw the style of ShoWTimE come into play, and it's kind of what we expected, but we saw that he really did struggle to get into the swing of things to actually make use of all of his tech. You know, typically typically when ShoWTimE is playing like this, again, he wants to slowly take his third, slowly take his fourth base, wall up, and then just macro from that point and get away with taking up to Archons and Disruptors and Immortals and all that good stuff, and eventually Zealots as well. but he was really stumbling. He was really stumbling in his approach. Just the RagnaroK's ability to just find these vulnerable positions with his lings. Like, he was so active with his lings, and I was surprised myself. I was shocked that RagnaroK was able to catch so many units out of position, or so many units left vulnerable there by ShoWTimE. Really good stuff there in the end from RagnaroK, and with that he takes a lead in this series. With that, he is 1 game away. With that, he is 1 game away from qualifying into the next round. Meanwhile, ShoWTimE is up against the ropes. Good. Alright, so it looks like the players just need a moment to settle themselves. It's all good, it's all good. Just letting them know. Just letting them know. Yeah. We are just getting ready for this. ShoWTimE just needs a moment to himself, just to recover and recuperate, and I don't blame them, but oh, here we go. The beeps are upon us. We're getting into game 2, which is going to be taking place on Dragon Scales. Catching up with the chat. What's been going on? Asher and the kitty. Yo, el payaso, papi. And here we go. We are now going to be getting into our next game, and spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Dragon Scales, we have the South Korean Zerg player representing Mystery Gaming, currently leading this series 1-0. It is RagnaroK. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the German Protoss player representing Big Esports. He is down in this series, 1 game away from being eliminated from ESL Master Summer. He needs to bring it back here and now. It is ShoWTimE. I just love saying ShoWTimE. Let's go, papi. Let's go. And that last game was textbook ShoWTimE, other than the fact that it did feel like it was unfortunate that many times his oracles were active on the map. So I was talking a lot about how RagnaroK, he just kept finding these vulnerabilities in ShoWTimE's defenses with his lings, and a big reason for that is because ShoWTimE was having a hard time having the map awareness to be aware of where the lings are and having his oracles in position in time. He had 3 oracles. Remember that. ShoWTimE had 3 oracles on the map, and they were more concerned with dealing economic damage and scouting the bases, less concerned with being defensive back at home. And those oracles were desperately needed to help support the Immortals and the Gateway units and the bases of ShoWTimE. Again, it feels like a bit of a clash of styles. Coming into game 1, we were talking about how RagnaroK is one of the more aggressive Zerg players in Korea, and we saw that, right? He's very active with his lings, and if the oracles aren't at home, or if the oracles aren't keeping track of those lings, then we can see that they can get out of hand. They can get a lot of damage done. So I would say that ShoWTimE, in a way, had the tools to defend, but alas, just wasn't able to keep up with the army movement of RagnaroK more than anything, to be able to be in position with his oracles in time. And we saw how that kind of snowballed out of control. Typically, when that scenario happens, it's like, okay, well, even if the Oracles weren't at home to defend, well, at least they were able to deal some economic damage across the map to equalize, right? The reality is that the Oracles didn't do much economic damage. They killed a handful of drones, like maybe 3 or up to 5 in total amongst the 3 of them, and that was not worth it. That is not worth the damage that was being dealt to ShoWTimE at the end of the day. So yeah, unfortunately, his aggression wasn't keeping up with the aggression of his opponents as well. But we'll see. We'll see how things do change here in game number 2. We'll see if ShoWTimE is able to adapt to RagnaroK. If he does play a similar style, and I think he will, to be honest, I would appreciate if he's maybe a little bit more conservative with his Oracle movement, or if he's less concerned with dealing economic damage and more concerned with keeping track of the army of his opponent. Well, we'll see. We'll see. As the Adepts do get across the map, just going to be threatening a shade, nothing too crazy for the time being. ShoWTimE is going to be backing off, and with this Stargate opener, it is going to be for that Oracle behind this. We'll see if we get another Robo and Forge. ShoWTimE isn't one note. He can mix things up, it's possible. I don't think he likes to, but it is within the realm of possibility that he goes for a Twilight Council follow-up into Bleak Stalkers, which I wouldn't be opposed to. Would not be opposed to at all, as the first Oracle does zoom across the map. Queens are in position, and they do manage to shoo it away for the time being. As the Oracle is just going to be keeping tabs here on RagnaroK. Meanwhile, once again, Lings do bypass the Oracle. They do head towards the third base. They're looking to try and punish the units here, but there's plenty of Adepts in position. They are snugged quite well against the pylon and the base itself, so there's no threat of them being surrounded. They are safe and sound. Meanwhile, once again, these Oracles are looking for some drones. We go for Revelation instead. So far, no worker kills. A little bit of hull damage on these Oracles. We do have a third one on the way behind this. There's that Forge. And momentarily, we should be seeing that Robo. Meanwhile, RagnaroK still just poking around with his Lings, still just being as active as possible. There's that Robo, so ShoWTimE is going for the same overall strategy, the same overarching goal here to just be very tech heavy, go for these bases, just be a little bit more defensive. As I say that, this time he's going to be moving out with his Adepts, so a bold move here from ShoWTimE. He wants to bring the aggression to... no, never mind. I think he does want to bring the aggression to his opponent, but he's going to be staying back at home, actually. He's going to be anticipating a Link counterattack. He wants to keep his bases safe and sound as RagnaroK throws down a Baneling Nest. Oh my. That's a lot of Lings. Soon to be a lot of Banelings as well. RagnaroK has grown up to a pretty solid worker count. He has a 4th base on the way, as well as a lair, but he has invested a lot into these Lings. All of these Lings could have been drones. Like, these Adepts, they aren't being active until now, so RagnaroK could have been getting away with being a little bit more greedy, but he wants to be more assertive instead. And there we go, we do see another surround on these Adepts. Oh, we do force the recall back home. Meanwhile, ShoWTimE is going for a bit of a different direction. I love this. He's going for a faster Bay, so he's not wasting time too early on trying to muster up a different kind of army. He's going to be rushing into potentially Colossi, which will help so much against all these Lings. Speaking of the Lings, they do get a surround once again on the Adepts as well. The Oracles are back at home this time, so they're able to shoo away all these Lings, and they aren't able to get out of control. And ShoWTimE has successfully defended his 3rd base without losing too much. Meanwhile, the Oracles are now active on the map. There, a 4th Oracle was made here for ShoWTimE. He's going straight for the mineral line, straight for the main base. Is forced back once again. RagnaroK still looking for some of that damage. It looks like he can maybe catch a couple of stray units here and there, maybe even that Immortal. But he is going to back off. Meanwhile, we got the Bay, but we haven't made anything yet. I assumed we were going to be working towards Colossi, but we haven't made any Colossi or Disruptor yet. The Lings, they go for a surround, but this is not a good trade for RagnaroK. He bleeds out a lot of Lings. Uh-oh. And ShoWTimE, instead of throwing down a 4th base, we have a bit of a gateway explosion instead. The Oracles are across the map. They get a couple of gas mining workers. 3 drones do go down. RagnaroK is now working on his army, but unlike the previous game, he hasn't really traded too well. These links have not been worth it. Again, I love that ShoWTimE has been adapting to his opponents. We now have disruptors on the way, 4th base on the way as well. ShoWTimE is in a much better position overall compared to game 1. But RagnaroK has he's finished droning. He's up to 78 workers. Now he's making nothing but lings, nothing but roaches. +2 is on the horizon. Roach speed about to finish up in a couple of seconds. RagnaroK wants to lay siege upon this 4th. Oh, and this army is looking a bit exposed. We'll see. I mean, RagnaroK's backing up for the time being. He's setting up a baneling run by here over at the 3rd base. His main army rotating around, looking to threaten that 4th. The base isn't done, which means we won't have an overcharge. The roaches do poke in. I don't think we're going to commit. The force fields are looking pretty damn good. We are distracting ShoWTimE right now as the banelings roll in. ShoWTimE does react in time, but the pylon does go down, and there's nowhere to go. The probes are stuck. No! The entire mineral line will go down. There was no way in, no way out. 16 probes go down. And now RagnaroK can focus on the main army. Nova will go off and will connect with some of those banelings. Good connection here from ShoWTimE. He is pumping out 4 probes at a time, chronoing them out as well, trying to replenish his worker count. We have a couple of state straps being thrown down as well. We haven't rebuilt those pylons, which is a little bit concerning. The gateway and the shield battery are depowered. And RagnaroK is going to do it again. Now, what's important is that ShoWTimE still has a pretty robust army. That's the difference. If you remember, up until this point, typically RagnaroK, he would catch a couple units here and there. He would be trading a little bit more efficiently. He hasn't touched the high-tech unit count here of ShoWTimE. He hasn't killed any Archons or any Immortals. Oh, state straps will be going off. As time goes on, ShoWTimE's army will be getting more and more terrifying. Oof. Novas will be going off here, getting some pretty good connections on the Ravagers, on the Roaches as well. More stasis traps will connect with the army. And is there enough left over from RagnaroK to really clean this up? It looks like there is not. He did kill some of those disruptors though. 2 disruptors did go down, as well as an Archon. Oh, he wants a disruptor. He will get it. Now RagnaroK is going to try to commit to this fight as well. He focuses down at that Immortal. But there is no detection, and DTs are warped in. Clutch DTs as well. Without them, it is very possible that RagnaroK would have been able to swallow up this army and potentially even end the game from there. But the DTs arrive just in time. Detection is on the way. RagnaroK remaxing once again. Here we go. Disruptors have been rebuilt, and we have seen some pretty good Novas already. RagnaroK, he takes note of that. He does back off. He does respect that, as we don't get the connections that we're really looking for. Overcharge is going to be popped. A good connection towards the end there. Banelings, they want to get into the mineral line. ShoWTimE does see that ahead of time. He does pull back. ShoWTimE survives the assault here with 3 disruptors, 2 Archons, looking to try and rebuild what he lost with those DTs. And RagnaroK is doing it again. Like, there's not too much complexity to the army of RagnaroK. Like, he's still on 78 workers, or 77 now. He's still on 5 bases. He isn't taking up to a hive, no infestation pit. And RagnaroK is literally just aping on Lingbane Roach Ravager. Like, he's just remaxing time and time again, just looking to break down his Protoss opponent. He isn't taking up any further. Not yet, anyway. We do have additional gases on the way, and this could be a sign of potentially maybe a Hydrogen and a Hive to get into Lunkers. I do think that Lurkers would be a good answer to this army. But as time goes on, you know, RagnaroK, it does feel like he's on a timer. He has to make something happen. He has to break one of these bases. It looks like he's going for the 3rd. But the army is in position. RagnaroK, he's been maxed out for a while now, and he needs to find a way in. There's that infestation pit. He's working towards the hive. So it looks like RagnaroK has recognized he can't end the game. He recognizes that he's going to have to tech up from here instead. Oh, Zealot Runby is looking to do a lot of damage across the map. RagnaroK out of position. He's going for a Baneling Runby, but we have Archons here waiting for him. This game is slipping out of RagnaroK's hands, and ShoWTimE is getting a firmer grip on this, on Dragon Scales. That's a lot of Archons, let me tell you. That's a lot of Archons, papi. Ay, ay, ay. Can we collapse on this army? He wants to. RagnaroK wants to try to go for it. Meanwhile, we have a Prism looking to slip into the main base. Meanwhile, here we go. The army moves in. A massive Nova does clash here with the Roaches, with the Banelings as well. Oh my god. That may be too much. Another Nova goes off, connects with the Banelings. And the Archons can stand strong against the Ling Bane. Ooh. We do get into the mineral line though. The base goes down. At the same time, a Zealot warp in into the main base of RagnaroK is going to pull him back. But that wasn't the worst trade. He killed the fourth and he got 29 probes. No probes here at the third, but the probes here at the fourth base did fall. And to be fair, that was crucial. If RagnaroK hadn't gotten into the mineral line, then he would be in a world of hurt right now. He'd be in a really rough position. But he is able to trade well enough against ShoWTimE. And now there's that hive. We don't have a Hydrogen yet, so with this hive, he's going to have access to Vipers. Vipers will help shut down these disruptors. A couple of yoinks, and there's no High Templar to feed back the Vipers. There's no Blink Stalkers to zone away the Vipers. There is no real answer to them. So if RagnaroK makes like 3 Vipers, I do think that he can have his way with this army. Alas, RagnaroK is not making Vipers. He's going for a Spire instead, which is understandable. If we want to take up further, Broodlords wouldn't be bad, but I do think the Vipers would be a better solution, a faster solution, if I do say so myself. Alas, for now, RagnaroK is still just making nothing but Lingbane Roach Ravager, waiting for that Spire to finish up. He's giving ShoWTimE the opportunity to really solidify himself here on these 4 bases. The Roach Ravager doing what the Roach Ling doing what it can here on the right-hand side does create an opening, and now the Banelings can roll on in from here. RagnaroK is fully aware of that. He wants to make use of the vulnerability that he has made. But ShoWTimE is in position, and he should be able to help clean this up. At the same time, another army here on the left-hand side. RagnaroK is trying to pull apart the army of ShoWTimE, but so far he has been unsuccessful, and ShoWTimE is close to maxing. Meanwhile, we were talking about the Broodlords, and there it is. Greater Spires on the way. So it looks like RagnaroK, he does just want to go for Broodlords, trade out these Roaches as best they can. These Roaches are just such a supply inefficient army. I just don't think he can get there in time. Like, we can see that RagnaroK is bleeding out Roaches, but soon ShoWTimE, he's max, he's gonna push out, and I think ShoWTimE is gonna push before there are Broodlords, and yeah, this may just be the window that he needs. Right now, there is a massive window before the Greater Spire finishes. It's only halfway done. These Corruptors are their dead supply, essentially. But we force a recall. Pretty crucial. Like, RagnaroK, he needs to buy time desperately. He's going for a massive Baneling counterattack here towards the 4th base. Meanwhile, ShoWTimE is not turning around. He's committing here towards the bottom left. Probes are falling left and right. ShoWTimE is being forced all in, but the problem is that I don't think RagnaroK can defend against the all in. It's going to be close. 4th base is going to be going down. RagnaroK, he focuses down whatever he can, gets a disruptor. ShoWTimE is not slowing down. Meanwhile, we have 10 Broodlords on the way. This is the win condition for RagnaroK. Can they finish in time? ShoWTimE is slowly making his way towards the natural base. Likewise, RagnaroK trying to race back home as well with what little he has. The Broodlords, they do finish. Is 10 Broodlords enough? That's the question. As they do reveal themselves. Meanwhile, the Archons ignore them. They do go for the Mineral Lines instead. We're going full base rate, essentially. 3rd base is forfeit. Oh, we have Stalkers. They have Blink. Uh-oh. And there we go. We blink on forward. 1 Broodlord goes down. Only 1 for the time being. 3rd base will fall as well. The Archon's trading so well against the Ling Roach. And a little bit of miscontrol here from RagnaroK. He bleeds out a lot of units. Oh, God. Meanwhile, we're down to 6 Broodlords. Oh, 4 Broodlords have already fallen from the initial 10. Yeah, again, I do think it was just far too greedy for RagnaroK to try to rush into this tech. I understand the logic behind it. Either too greedy or maybe too late. That's the other option, of course. And GG gets called. ShoWTimE ties up the series 1-1. GG. ShoWTimE really showing the power of this kind of style of play in PvZ, where you're just hyper defensive. If you're able to weather the storm, if you're able to absorb enough pushes from the Zerg player, and if they stay on lair tech a little bit too long, then ShoWTimE can snowball out of control. GG, well played. And the ace match is going to be taking place on Babylon. Here we go. This is where it all ends in the ace match in game number 3. But yeah, like ShoWTimE just showing off that like if he's able to get his bases up and running, you know, get up to 4 base economy. Again, we saw he was much more conservative with his army. He got his adepts caught out, if you do recall. But he did recall them. But for the most part, he was a lot more defensive, he was a lot more careful with his units and making sure that he got his 3rd and 4th base up and running, uncontested. We saw that RagnaroK invested into Lings early on, not really getting too much value out of them, and ShoWTimE was able to get into the mid game in a much better position than he was able to in game number 1, and that did end up snowballing out of control. You could also argue that it was also a bit on RagnaroK as well. It took him a long time to tech up, and trying to jump from Ling Bane, Roach Ravager into Broodlords, that's a big leap. It's a big leap, and you do leave yourself very vulnerable for a long time. That's a larger leap than, say, going Roach Ravager into Hydra Lurker, for example, right? Hydra Lurker Viper, even. And you can argue that, I mean, obviously Broodlords are better. That they are typically better against that kind of army compared to Lurkers, for example. But, yeah, it was just a little bit ambitious from RagnaroK to jump ahead like that, considering the state of the game. I would have had to have done so much sooner if he wanted to get away with that. And here we go. We're getting into the ace match. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Babylon, we have the South Korean Zerg player representing Mystery Gaming. Looking good in game 1, but struggling a little bit more in game number 2. Here he is. It is RagnaroK. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the German Protoss player himself representing big esports. Some know him as Demau, but he is ShoWTimE. Let's go. In the chat, light solo cast. I was duo casting up until this series. Asher did go to bed. It is over 5 a.m. in the morning. So I don't blame Asher. I don't blame Asher whatsoever. It is very late here in Australia, but we're going the distance. We're making sure that we can cast as much as we can, everything we can, before we pass out in bed and never wake up. It's over, Papi. It's a F's in the chat. I'll see you in the next life. StarCraft 3 is waiting for me. But yeah, that was a pretty intense game. A pretty intense game overall. And I do believe that ShoWTimE is going to play that out again. What I mean by that is I expect him to go into a triple Oracle opener, into a Forge and a Robo. Like, this composition, this playstyle of ShoWTimE, this very unique playstyle from ShoWTimE that we've been seeing in game 1 and game 2, it's his go-to. He does it every single PvZ, and every now and then he does kind of break the mold, and he like breaks the norms, and he does something different. but I don't think he needs to. I don't. I feel like against against RagnaroK, I think he has the advantage if he's able to just focus on defending and focus on taking his third and fourth base in an efficient manner. As we've seen, like RagnaroK, more often than not, he's willing to cut workers to make an abundance of lings and abundance of roaches, and sometimes stay on a lair tech army a little bit too long, and that plays to the advantages of ShoWTimE. Again, this clash of styles, I think, favors ShoWTimE overall, but we'll see. We'll see. Of course, if it did favor him heavily enough, then, you know, why didn't ShoWTimE 2-0, right? Like, RagnaroK found a way to deal or to pick off so many units in game 1. He may be looking to do so again here in game 3. We'll see. Until such a time, we're going to be getting into our hatch gas pool opener. Everything's looking quite standard here between our players. Stargate opener from ShoWTimE should be for an Oracle first, as we have seen every game so far in this series. And this is where we can talk a little bit about the map itself. Babylon is kind of known by many as the all-in map. We see so many Roach all-ins here, Roach Queen all-ins on Babylon just because of these rocks. Especially if you do take this base as your fourth, you can launch your creep across the map, work through the rocks in the center, and lay siege upon these bases of the Protoss. With queens, with roaches, this can hit very hard off of a 3 base economy, basically 66 drones, 66 even. So yeah, we see that very often from players like Raynor, Serral, Dark as well. It is quite a popular build and quite a popular kind of play style on Babylon in ZVP. Because it's so popular though, I imagine that ShoWTimE is pretty well versed at defending against it. I imagine he's pretty damn practiced at it as well. So we'll see if RagnaroK does go for that, and we'll see how ShoWTimE fares in defending against it. Until then, we're just going to be droning quite heavily here, just saturating our natural, saturating our third. We have an Evo chamber on the way. This should be for +1 melee. As the oracles move out, the lings move in, but the adepts are in position, and the lings don't find too much damage. Meanwhile, 4 drones go down. Already a lot of damage being dealt. ShoWTimE takes a little bit of hull damage, but for the most part, well worth it here for ShoWTimE. There's that third Oracle moving out. Adepts looking to rock up here at the third base. ShoWTimE flaunting his multi-prong aggression. Let's go. Oh, 3 more drones do go down. Meanwhile, those triple Oracles, they are headed towards the main base. They could ignore a spore at least a little bit. Oh, as they get 3 workers in total. 10 all up this game. For what, really? For a handful of adepts. Well worth it for ShoWTimE. Good start from our German Protoss. Meanwhile, behind this, we're rushing into our lair. 5-minute 30 lair, pretty reasonable time here for RagnaroK, to be fair. We have the Baneling Nest on the horizon as well. And behind this, RagnaroK is going for his 4th base. And something to bear in mind, a stark difference here. Between game 3 and every other game, RagnaroK didn't really make any lings. He made 14 already, to be fair, but I mean, he hasn't really made as many as he usually does. He's been focusing heavily on droning instead. He doesn't really have too much of a map presence right now either, so it does feel like RagnaroK is adapting over time. Meanwhile, behind this, ShoWTimE, he does go for the Robo into Forge, into +1, Robotic Spay on the way. This is kind of what we've been expecting from ShoWTimE, and he's doing it once again. Except this time he's going for a faster Dark Shrine. Interesting. Much faster Dark Shrine, so DTs are going to be incorporated. That does mean that ShoWTimE can be a little bit more aggressive as well. Once again. Meanwhile, RagnaroK, he's droned up to 64, and he's making nothing but lings. No Roach Warren was thrown down, and we see why. He's going to be going Ling Bane Hydra instead. Interesting. So RagnaroK is switching things up. I don't know if that's going to work too well against the army composition of ShoWTimE. The added advantage of Ling Bane Hydra is, oh, he does get a surround on this army, and he does force a recall. Beautifully done by RagnaroK. He does delay the 4th base of ShoWTimE. Wonderful catch here from the Zerg player, from these Lings. What I was about to say is that this army does seamlessly transition into Lurkers much easier. And we were talking about how, like, between Lurkers and Broodlords, like, they both have a similar role. And we saw that RagnaroK was really struggling to transition into Broodlords in that last game. So now he's going to have the option to go into Lurkers far easier here in case he's forced into that position, in case ShoWTimE does solidify his 4th base. So I do appreciate this adaptation from RagnaroK. Meanwhile, the Lings, they just catch wind of the army itself. Do spot the 4th being taken. They can't really do too much about it yet. The Hydras have been revealed here to the Oracles, as RagnaroK has been able to saturate and drone up to 82, soon to be 84. A really solid worker count for RagnaroK. Now we can focus on nothing but Ling Bane Hydra. I would love to be seeing an Infestation Pit soon to get into Hive Tech, to get into Adrenal Glands, as RagnaroK is just knocking down all these rocks, gaining that map control, looking to swallow up any kind of army that moves out for ShoWTimE. But ShoWTimE's just turtling up back at home. He's just happily chilling here on these 4 bases, walling off, splitting up his army, a couple of Archons at the 3rd base, Disruptors in between the bases. RagnaroK is going to poke and prod, but he shouldn't find too much damage. Again, ShoWTimE has done a great job at just splitting off his forces and securing himself. Meanwhile, the Banelings do roll on in. Likewise, once again, they do hit that 3rd base, but ShoWTimE is able to pull away in time. He doesn't lose too much. Only 4 probes do fall. I do feel like RagnaroK is going to be trying that a couple of times before he decides to transition. Still no Infestation Pit, still no Hive. Still just Lair Tech out of RagnaroK. I worry. I mean, if he gets a mineral line, then it's worth it. It's fine. But if he doesn't, then we're in trouble. Up! Speaking of, ooh, 1 Baneling makes it in. 11 probes go down. Suddenly, it's worth it. Suddenly, oh, ShoWTimE is in a world of hurt. Stasis Trap does go off. Banelings are rolling on in, and ShoWTimE is slow to react. Oof. Ay, ay, ay. 22 probes go down. 1 second is all it takes. 1 Baneling is all it takes as well. For those wondering, when you have +2 melee, Baneling's one-shot probe. So all you need is 1 Baneling to get into a mineral line, and everything will be on fire. Everything will explode. Up! Decent Nova's going to be going off on the right-hand side. Meanwhile, the Banelings, they roll in again, and they catch the transferring workers. Ay, ay, ay. Who needs Lurkers when we have Ling Bane like RagnaroK does, as he's just getting such good trades. No shield batteries, Archons, Disruptors, everything is going down here at the 4th base. Ugh, things are getting just far too out of hand. And as RagnaroK eviscerates the 4th, now he throws down an Infestation Pit. Now he's working towards that Hive. He knows that he has a lead, and he's focusing down the base itself. The Nexus does fall. Initially, ShoWTimE was doing a great job at defending, but that could not last forever. That did not last forever. Eventually, RagnaroK was able to break through and very quickly snowball out of control. Oh, he's going for the surround. Nova's going to be going off a beautiful connection on Banelings and Hydras, but it's not going to be enough. Once again, the mineral line just explodes. Oh, God, and RagnaroK's not stopping. We don't even have any workers here, Papi. It's too... He's already dead, Papi. Stop. The Baneling's coming in a little bit too soon. We do have a Prism slipping into the main base, and DTs are looking to wreak havoc. And they get a couple of drones. They pull back the entire army of RagnaroK. Meanwhile, there's that Hive. With that Hive, we will have access to Vipers. We're actually going for the Spire again. Because why the hell not? Why not at this point? I mean, this time RagnaroK does have a really comfortable lead, so he has the freedom to tech up in whatever direction he wants. There's no pressure on him to rush into Lurkers or rush into anything, really. as ShoWTimE is trying to build up this Archon Disruptor army, and it's looking quite robust, but the Banelings, they roll in once again. They take down what little is left here at the 4th base. Massive Stasis Trap will go off, though, on those Lings. Oh, but the Banelings! Oh, no. One of them, one is all it takes. It looks like it. Up, up, up. Will not go off. It does turn around. 11 workers go down. And ShoWTimE is committed to the counterattack with his Archons, with his Disruptors. He's going to trade well against... Oh my god, he's going to trade well against the Hydras. A beautiful detonation on those Banelings. ShoWTimE doing so much with so little. But at the end of the day, he's still all in. At the end of the day, he has to end the game with this army, and he's just not. The Prism gets focused down, the Archons, the Disruptors, and GG gets called. RagnaroK will be taking the series 2-1, advancing on into the knockout bracket. GG. Very well played there by RagnaroK, able to adapt over the course of this series to how ShoWTimE has been playing. My condolences to ShoWTimE. He is one of the best Protosses in all of Europe, and his run ends here. It isn't, in a way, it isn't as devastating as some of the Koreans as they flew across the world to get here. The travel, I'm sure, wasn't as arduous for ShoWTimE, but regardless, it's a shame. It's because ShoWTimE is one of the best, and for a player like ShoWTimE, a player like Hero as well, for them not to make it through is heartbreaking. It's such a shame. Like, this is such a brutal tournament. I know ESL, they've gotten a lot of feedback about the format. I know a lot of people, like Asher and I, we expressed our disdain for how brutal this is, how unforgiving, I think that's probably a better word, how unforgiving this format is for a lot of these players, for a lot of these high quality top tier players as well. And with that, we bid adieu to ShoWTimE. He is knocked out of ESL Masters Summer. GG. GG, well played, and congratulations to RagnaroK as he's able to make it through into this tournament. And that is it. That is us done for today. That is the open bracket completed, and we have all of these lovely, wonderful players making it through. !B in the chat if you guys want to have a look at the bracket yourselves. Let's quickly go over it here as I quickly just double check. All right. From the top, Lambo as well as Dongraegu qualified in Group A. They both made it out. My condolences to StarCraft and Mana as they were not able to make it through. If you want to tune into Group A, we casted the majority of it, so the VODs are available on our Twitch channel, and they'll be available eventually on our YouTube channel as well. Again, Group A was a lot of fun, to be honest. Like, the highlight, Hearthstone versus Dongraegu. It was so good. It was such an interesting series. I personally, I'm really fond of when players have these really stylistic play styles, like ShoWTimE, for example, or even RagnaroK, or Hearthstone, or Spirit, or MaxPax, even Hero at times. Like, they have such a unique way at approaching the game. Creator as well is a good example. And to see players encounter that for the first time, and to see them in the moment try to adjust and try to have everything sink in and try to counter it. I do think that DRG versus Hearthstone was a really good series to follow overall. Even Hearthstone versus Lambo as well, considering how Hearthstone was playing. So Group A in the books. Group B, Hero Marine and ShoWTimE make it through. You heard me right, ShoWTimE. There was a big upset. We were able to cast it. Nightmare was the favorite. It was supposed to be Hero Marine and Nightmare. That was supposed to be the timeline that we live in. But alas, it was Hero Marine and ShoWTimE instead. ShoWTimE with a massive upset, a 2-0 over Nightmare in a PvP. That PvP was brutal to watch as well. It was very dynamic at times, but ShoWTimE was just the better player on the day, I'll be honest. Was able to overcome Nightmare. Nightmare may be a little bit overconfident, and ShoWTimE makes it out. He's probably the biggest underdog out of all the qualified players. I think people did not expect much from ShoWTimE at all, and he exceeds expectations as he makes it out of Group B. Meanwhile, Group C, we have Skillus. This is Group C, by the way. We have Skillus taking down ShoWTimE 2-0. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cast it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to be a part of it. Oh. We weren't able to be a part of it, but Skillus did take down ShoWTimE, and I think that's a really impressive result. I know that I would say that Skillus is one of the best Protosses in Europe. I'd say he's top 3 with ShoWTimE and MaxFax, and for him to take down ShoWTimE 2-0 is really impressive stuff. I do know that ShoWTimE, he hasn't been looking in peak condition or like as in form as he has in years past. I understand that, but I think a lot of people still expect him to do well and to go far in these tournaments. I think expectations are still quite high for ShoWTimE, so for him to not make it through is a little bit devastating for, I'm sure, many of his fans. Like he's been around for a long time. He's been at the top of the European scene for a long time as well. So my condolences to ShoWTimE, as we just casted him, and he did just fall to RagnaroK as well. So congratulations to RagnaroK and Skillus for making it through Group C. Meanwhile, Group D is, again, upsets all around. We were able to cast the majority of Group D, so I recommend checking out the VODs if you're interested. But a Laser 2-0'd Creator and 2-1'd Hero. A Laser was on fire today. He was just playing out of his mind. I say playing out of his mind, kind of like Hearthstone. A Laser today came with a very greedy play style, and both Creator and Hero were having a hard time adapting on the fly. I do think if they were given some more time, if they had a best of 5, we may have seen a different series, to be honest. We may have seen a different outcome. For those wondering, a Laser was opening up in a very greedy fashion. He was delaying gas. He was cutting so many corners, delaying link speed for so long as well, just droning so heavily. And both Hero and Creator were not punishing his greed. They were not punishing it in the early game. So a Laser got such a big economic boost into the mid game, and he just snowballed from there. It was really interesting to see it unfold before our eyes. And yeah, it's just a really interesting playstyle that clearly both Creator and Hero are not used to and they're not accustomed to, and it really caught them off guard. So really cool stuff out of a Laser. As we also casted the other qualifying match, it's a Laser and Creator advancing through. Hero did not, and again, heartbreaking. Hero is eliminated just like ShoWTimE in the open bracket, in the open stage of this tournament. And yeah, it's a little bit sad. I personally, like, I'm a Zerg player. I'm not a massive I mean, I usually do cheer for Zergs, but I'm a massive Hero fan. I appreciate watching him. I can really appreciate what he brings to the table and his skill at the game, and I was really looking forward to seeing him against some of the other top tier players in the later stages of this tournament. And for his run to end here is it's a bit heartbreaking, a little bit heartbreaking. But, you know, that's how it goes in these tournaments, you know? In this competitive environment, it's cutthroat, you know? You have winners, you have losers, and oh boy, you know, even though I may be a little bit sad about Hero, I have to be over the moon for a Laser, for some of these other players. A Laser, Shadown, Lambo, Dongregu, like, yeah, they did really well for themselves making it through this open stage, and I wish them the best of luck tomorrow, as they're going to be competing tomorrow in the knockout bracket. Meanwhile, shout out to some of the other casters out there. Shout out to, I believe, Steadfast and Behemoth. They were covering the B stream, and shout out to the casters over in the mainstream as well. Zombie Grub, Wardy, Rotterdam. I'll be honest, I'm not. This happens all the time. But because we've been casting all day, I haven't been able to tune in. I missed it. I missed it all. I envy the people in the chat. You guys can multi-twitch it up. I missed out on a whole day of StarCraft. On the whole mainstream. But yeah, a shout out to all the people covering the mainstream. As I quickly just double check, there's got to be a talent list here. There we go. Shout out to Kalaris, DeMuslim, Loco, Pig, Rotterdam, Wardy, and Zombie Grub for covering the mainstream over there. And they're going to be covering the mainstream for the next couple of days. It is a 3-day event, and this is day 1 in the books. Oh boy, so best of luck to all of them, as we're done for the weekend. You know, we are only able to cover the open brackets. The rest of the tournament will be covered by the main stream and by the B stream. So hope everyone enjoyed the casting, hope everyone enjoyed the stream, the broadcast, and shout out to Asher as well. Asher is not here with me anymore, but he is here in spirit, embodied by Rufus, his cat. Hello, Rufio. I love Rufus. He's so majestic. Look at him. Oh, it's beautiful. But a shout out to Asher for staying with me for the majority of the cast. We came into this expecting a 4-hour cast. We've been live for 10 hours. I just realized 10 hours. Oh my god. It really is a DreamHack broadcast. This isn't the longest stream we've done. We've had 14-hour streams before. But regardless, 10 hours is a lot. And thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. And if anyone has been here for the full 10 hours, mate, go to bed. Take care of yourselves. But also, thank you. Thank you for tuning in for the full 10 hours. We appreciate it very greatly, very greatly. We got a lot of amazing games here today. A lot of amazing games. With that, I feel like I was about to go on a bit of a tangent. Oh yeah, if you are maybe tuning in for the first time, if you enjoyed the casting, then consider following us here on the CranKy Ducklings. We are live multiple times a day, every day, typically. We are going to be going on a bit of a hiatus for DreamHack. Like, we don't want to clash with DreamHack. We don't want to cast our regular tournaments while DreamHack is going on. We don't want to take viewership away, so of course we will be tuning into DreamHack with everyone else, and I'll be doing the best that I can to watch the main stream over the next 2 days as well. But when there isn't DreamHack going on, we're usually live here on the CranKy Ducklings. We cast a multitude of events: ESL Open Cup Asia, ESL Open Cup Americas, Korean StarCraft League, Kung Fu Cup, World Team League, and we also run our own tournaments as well, like Grand Platypus Open, Sparkling Tuna Cup, the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. Maybe what are all these animals? What's going on? We're the Ducklings. It's on brand, and I highly recommend you, if you enjoyed this cast, to check out some of the others as well if you're interested. We have a lot of StarCraft here on this channel. We take pride in the fact that I think we're the most active casting channel out there. Not the most popular, of course, when it comes to viewership, but we're the most active. We put in a lot of hours, put in a lot of work. We do our best. We do our best. And it's not just me. I'm one of the founders of the Ducklings, but Kuro, Yaku, Steel Mold, Asher, in the past, people like Melty, Chase, Chappie. We're a team, and we do our best to bring you as much StarCraft as we can. Darking, Vortex, so many people involved here for the CranKy Ducklings, and yeah, we do what we can. We do our part. We do our part. So yeah, consider following us here if you're interested. We have a YouTube, we have a Patreon as well. Our Patreon is set up to fund our tournaments. If you're familiar with the KSL, we have a Patreon set up to fund our events as well, like the Sparkling Tuna Cup, like the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. The difference between our events and the KSL is that our events are region locked. We region lock our tournaments to North America and Latin America, and to Oceania and Southeast Asia. So our tournaments are more geared towards some of these smaller regions, and we're doing our best. We're doing our best to support these smaller regions because they need the support quite a lot. Shout out to Dave Tessa and Chicken Man for making the KSL a wonderful success. And we are trying to merely have a fraction of that success with our own Patreon and our own tournaments. We do also provide replay packs and all that stuff if you're interested. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our next broadcast may be in 6 hours. I think in 7 hours is the KSL, and if I can wake up in time, I'll be there. I'll be there to cast KSL. Otherwise, I'll be fast asleep, and I'll be dreaming about casting KSL. So we'll see what happens. But if you want to tune into the next CranKy Duckling broadcast, it may be in 7 hours for the Korean StarCraft League. Otherwise, it's going to be in a couple of days. Let me just quickly check our calendar. We do have a calendar set up with all of our events. If you don't see us cast KSL, then it's going to be ESL Open Cup Asia on Monday. So Again, we are just keeping Sunday off and maybe even Saturday off as well for DreamHack. After DreamHack, we're back to our regular scheduled programming. So yeah, check us out if you're interested. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be giving another StarCraft streamer a raid, so give them some love, give them some support. They do deserve it. Who is it? Let me check who's live right now. We may as well just raid the mainstream actually. Gumiho is currently playing against Dark. Let's go, Bobby. Let's raid the mainstream. Unless is there anyone else live right now? So many people playing Diablo. they're all playing Diablo, Bobby. Diablo. All right, let's go. Let's go raid the mainstream. Dark versus Gumiho, a best of 3. Oh, in a 30-minute game as well. So give them some love, give them some support. And with that, thank you so much everyone for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, bye. Bye.